everyone, Anthony Monteith here from the INMI, Institute of Natural Medicine Ireland. We're here at Castleknock in Dublin, and I'm going to give you a practical demonstration of a basic body balance using the fractal system of acupuncture that I've been demonstrating the last few days. So the first method we do is we will pick a fractal that is tender, that has the Asha response, and we will determine then which element we need to balance emotionally in the person. For this demonstration, we're going to assume that the most tender side is on the left side, but you want to palpate both sides. I'm going to use a yin meridian for this. Typically it's because I like to do the global balancing part of this on the yang meridians. I like to do the emotional part using the yin meridians. It's just my own personal preference. So I'm going to go over to this arm here, and I'm going to take the section from the elbow to the large crease of the wrist. Remember, the fractals are broken down into 5 sections, the 5th one being here. I generally use 3 fingers. I'll check to see if my fingers similar to the patient's, not far off. And I'll go down. For example, I'm going to use the Tai Yin meridian, the lung meridian in this case, on the arm, and I'm going to palpate down and ask my subject, when does it start to feel different or tender? It's not necessarily going to be always painful.
It was more towards the elbow.
More towards the elbow first. Okay, so we have an idea that we go more towards the elbow. We check, we cover the whole meridian.
There is a little bit
there as well. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the elbow. There. Okay, so would this point be more tender to this point?
Yes.
Yes. Now I've found my fractal, but I'm going to go above it, 1 sun, and below it, 1 sun, which is more tender. Upper. Upper. Then I go back to the original, still here, or more the upper? More the upper. So that's my section. I measure it from the crease. We are just on the edge, in this case, water going into wood. We're literally on the border. So that's going to be my first needle. So at this point I'm thinking of what does the water represent and what does the wood represent from an emotional factor. The good thing about the fractal system is you're not treating, in this case, fear or anger, frustration. You're strengthening the qualities, the positive qualities. So you're treating, in this case, courage, willpower, and we're treating with wood empathy, being empathic. So it's a very positive treatment. It's not leaning towards the darker side of the medicine. I'm going to free needles, so I hope that's okay with you guys, but those legislations in Ireland are a little bit more okay. It's a moderate depth, maybe half my finger width. It's not too deep, and that's comfortable for you. It's quite perpendicular. Then I'm going to treat the physical body. So I'm going to make a choice, do I use a yin meridian or a yang meridian? It actually doesn't really matter. It's not like Dr. Tan's global balance, it's not like Master Dong. There is an element of crisscross in this. For this, because Maria has damaged or actually damaged her ankle, I want to be able to treat physically you as a person, but also perhaps treat this ankle. And there is a scar there. I would typically in my clinic treat the scar anyway, but we're just doing a different system. So I'm actually going to use a yang meridian on the opposite side, just for this purpose. I don't want to confuse you, but you can use yin or yang. You have to remember that from what I've said, the fire in this case on this is more towards the head and the leg. In the hand, the fire is more towards the wrist, because classically the human body is in this position in China, not in the Western position here. So this is more going towards the sun, fire. The leg is obviously higher off the ground, more towards your head, fire. So I'm going to go down the gallbladder meridian. I can use the stomach meridian, it doesn't really matter. And you're going to tell me there, more tender here. Okay, I'm going to keep going. There. That pretty much is above gallbladder 39. It corresponds very much to your scar on the opposite side. Is there, would you say that this is more tender than where we were here?
Yes.
So here. So we are now actually, water being here, we're actually in the middle of wood, which obviously corresponds to the gallbladder meridian, the liver meridian. It also corresponds to the fact that it's tissue, connected tissue that needs to be repaired. I'm using a guide tube here just to show you that we do use both here in Ireland. This particular needle I'm using is a dongbang. It's a 0.25 with a length of 25 millimeters from the modern people in the group. Whoops. Now I'm going to do the most important needle, really. If you don't do any of these, this is the most important for everyone. It's called the global balance point. If you study the Fibonacci sequence, there is a mean average to everything. I can't remember the exact number. Perhaps some of you out there who've studied it can. Off the top of my head, I can't remember right now. How I locate it is by, for myself, taking my thumb, my forefinger, and placing it into crease of my elbow, and I'm holding here where the fourth knuckle sits. The global point is going to be in and around here. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to use a yang meridian on the opposite side. You can do a global balance on a yin or a yang meridian, but it's just easier to do it on the arm. This in the human body would be equivalent if this was the head and this was the pelvis. This would be equivalent to needling the dantian, so needling near to the umbilicus area. So that's what you're replicating. Yeah. Sorry. Now obviously I couldn't get Maria because she's got her arm here, but what I typically do, I'm going to just take this needle out, Maria, is ask you to show me where your balance point is. So it's roughly in this region. So I have an idea. I'm going to stay just on the yang for the purpose of this demonstration. I'm going to palpate and you tell me which.
The second point.
Here. Here.
Oh, the
there.
third one.
No.
Yeah.
And obviously because the fascia is quite tight, I don't want you to move too much. This is the one that's going to disperse the chi globally in this system, not necessarily true for all systems. Let me just go back to where I was because we had to take the needle out so we could. How long would I leave the person? It's a minimum of at least 30 minutes. the effects tend to be a bit more cosmic, so in other words people tend to really go quite deep. Can bring up emotional things, so be aware of that. I've never found it so effective for pain, nowhere near as effective as the balance method or Mastodon or similar systems, but you can use it for that because obviously you're palpating asha meridians or points on meridians which are opposing each other, balancing yin and yang. What we're actually doing is creating a triangulation. The fractal is very much about triangulation, and if you see with Maria, we're creating a triangle from point to point to point. And the shape of that triangle can change. So sometimes you'll have an equilateral triangle, sometimes you'll have isosceles or different kinds of triangles like that. It's just very interesting to note. And that's the very simple basis of it. So from an emotional perspective, water coming into wood. From a physical perspective is more the wood, so tendons, the sinews, treating that, and a global balance just to give her energy and to smooth out the treatment. And that's your basic fractal treatment. Sometimes I find when you've got really difficult clients with difficult multiple conditions, this for some reason just reboots them and gets them back to where they're supposed to be. There is a whole thing that comes with this, which is the systematic turtle. So some of you will have studied that. It's chronotherapeutic acupuncture. We will run through that much later on, but just get a handle on this, enjoy it. If you like what you see, leave a comment. I hope this helps. Thank you.